Now, I know I've said before, and I'll say it again, that we are living in a dictatorship. This is not something that's on its way. It's here. I was about to say, it's not like we need to have tanks in the street in order to prove it's a dictatorship. And then I remembered Trump is gonna have a military parade on his birthday where tanks are gonna be in the street. We've never had a military parade here before, but I guess they really wanna drive the dictatorship point home. What I wanna remind everybody though of today is that one of the reasons why this dictatorship was able to happen and why it continues is because we have no opposition party. There are so many examples of how we're not living in a democracy, including the genocide in Gaza being allowed to continue because the majority of the American people oppose arming the Israeli regime and oppose the genocide in Gaza, yet nothing changes. Regardless of whether or not we have Biden or Trump, the bombs are still flowing. That is not democracy. And when I say we have no fucking opposition party here, and that is why this shit is able to continue to escalate, here's Hakeem Jeffries, alleged leader of the Democratic Party in the House. Okay, I had to get back to clip the video. I want you to listen carefully as he is asked what the Democratic Party is planning on doing about the fact that not only last month, they charged a Democratic member of Congress, and now the DOJ is trying to go after her for doing her job. But this week, the thugs from ICE went to Jerry Connolly's office and handcuffed one of his staff members. That is a constitutional crisis. Let's see what Hakeem Jeffries has to say about it. As you listen to this long-winded word salad, see if you can hear an actual response to the question.
I want to ask you about something that happened in your home state of New York. In the past couple of days, Congressman Jerry Nadler said that DHS agents entered his congressional office on Wednesday without a warrant and handcuffed a member of his staff. This, of course, comes after the Trump Justice Department charged Democratic Congresswoman LaMonica McIver with obstructing ICE agents after an altercation at a facility in Newark, New Jersey. Now, I know you previously warned that the administration charging members of Congress was a, quote, red line. What are you doing now that the red line you talked about has apparently been crossed?
Well, let me make clear that the House is a separate and co-equal branch of government. The Congress, we don't work for Donald Trump. We don't work for the administration. We don't work for Elon Musk. We work for the American people. And we have a responsibility to serve as a check and balance on an out-of-control executive branch. That's the constitutional blueprint that was given to us by the framers of the United States democracy that we have inherited over the last few centuries. And so we're going to continue to undertake our congressional responsibility, notwithstanding efforts by the Trump administration to try to intimidate Democrats. It's unfortunate that our Republican colleagues continue to be nothing more than rubber stamps for Trump's reckless and extreme agenda. And the American people, I think, will ultimately reject that next year when we will take back control of the House of Representatives. In the meantime, in terms of how we will respond to what Trump and the administration has endeavored to do, we will make that decision in a time, place, and manner of our choosing. But the response will be continuous, and it will meet the moment that is required.
What exactly does that mean? Have you not decided how to respond?
We've publicly responded in a variety of different ways. We haven't let our foot off the gas pedal in terms of additional things that may take place with respect to our congressional oversight authority and capacity. We will respond in a time, place, and manner of our choosing if this continues to happen.
If this
You believe as
shorter, we're not going to do anything. He sounds like Chuck Schumer. He's like, oh, we're just going to keep putting our foot on the gas. What do you mean continue to put your foot on the gas? You've been in park this whole time. We'll respond at a time and a place and a manner of our choosing? What does that even mean? The closest thing he gets to an answer is talking about how they're going to take back Congress next year. That's really all they give a fuck about, is winning re-election and making money, of course. So his answer to the fascism and the constitutional crisis that's happening right now is, well, you better watch out for when we retake the House. Even Dana Bash, who's such an unbearable company man, was like, so you don't have a plan? You said that a Congress member being charged or something like what happened to Jerry Nadler's staff happening was a red line. And now that they've crossed that red line, because they know that the Democrats aren't going to do shit, they know they're not a real opposition party, once they cross that line, they're like, the reason why they crossed the red line is because they knew Democrats weren't going to do anything about it. In the same way that Biden said that going into Rafah was a red line, they did it anyway because they knew he wasn't going to do shit. Trump and the Republicans crossed that red line because they knew that the Democrats weren't going to do shit. What an embarrassing answer. And why should the GOP be intimidated at all or believe anything the Democrats say when he does these pathetic interviews being like, well, we'll respond for a matter of our choosing, and I've got a red line, but I'm not going to do anything when you cross it? Because here's him over a month ago. Over a month ago, talking about what the Democrats were going to do if Trump's administration continued to defy court orders, something that Chuck Schumer said was also a red line, and that he would say, we're in a constitutional crisis and everybody has to act if it happens, and then it happened and they didn't do anything.
The Trump administration is finding ways to defy the courts on a few fronts right now. One is refusing to bring back Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Another example is continuing to block the Associated Press from covering the president despite a judge ordering the White House
He's still
to treat
not
the
here.
AP like other news organizations. Sir, I know that you have said that the president defying court orders would create a constitutional crisis. Are we there?
I think what we need right now is certainly, we're in a crisis across the board, right? I mean, that is obvious for everyone to see. This is not normal. The president is assaulting the economy, assaulting Social Security, assaulting healthcare, assaulting the American way of life, and assaulting our democracy. None of this is normal. It is all a crisis. Now, with respect to what we need to deal with in terms of the situation with the courts, the Supreme Court needs to aggressively enforce its judicial orders. The White House is seeking a confrontation with the courts, and the courts need to lean into that. We will have the back of the courts, and it needs to use all of the tools available to it, like contempt,
for example,
in terms of the people within the administration who are failing to adhere to these judicial orders or who are actively continuing to propagate unlawful or unconstitutional actions at Donald Trump's direction.
So his answer is, as they continue to assault the Constitution, that they should just be held in contempt. That's the answer, right? Well, like I said, that interview was from over a month ago. But look at what they put in the big, beautiful bill that already passed the House by one vote and is now being considered in the Senate. They literally put a provision in the bill that would limit the power of judges to enforce contempt orders. Exactly what Hakeem Jeffries a month ago was saying that they needed to do. So what then? Since we all know that they're just going to hand wave about how they're going to do everything they can to stop it in the Senate and that it'll sail right through. You'll have a little bit of puppet shows from some of the senators. They always pick one or two that pretend to be opposed to it, that maybe you're in an unsafe seat, so they let them vote against it. But then they always have some sellout. They've always got a Joe Manchin or a Kyrsten Sinema. Last week, it was Alyssa Slotkin siding with the Republicans. That will side with them. So then what? Are we supposed to sit around and wait for a time and place and a manner of your choosing to do nothing? Why should they believe your threats, Hakeem Jeffries? Because you literally had that interview a month ago where you talked about how you were going to hold them accountable. And Kilmar Abrego Garcia is still not back. They're defying the courts every single day. And you guys are not only not doing anything, you've barely said anything about the fact that they want to strip this constitutional power from the courts. Okay, so let's get to the part where she brings up what trash the Democratic Party's polling is.
Brought a poll, so let me tell you about a new one that just came out here at CNN this morning. It shows that only 19% of Americans say that your party can get things done. 36 say the same about Republicans. And just 16% say your party has strong leaders. It's pretty rough, and you are one of those leaders. How do you turn that around?
Yeah, we don't have the presidency right now, so that's always going to be challenging a few months after a presidential election. But we have to continue to make the case, one, that Democrats, of course, are the party that is determined to make life more affordable for everyday Americans, for hardworking American taxpayers, that we believe that we need to lower the high cost of living, which for decades has been going up while the size of the middle class has been going down. So understandably, there's real frustration amongst the American people. They should be frustrated.
But they're frustrated with you as well, with Democrats as well.
Of course, they're frustrated with the system. But what is interesting, Dana, I think you're aware of this.
Sir, do you understand that people are tired of your platitudes? Like, yeah, the cost of living is incredibly high, and it continued to get higher during the entire Biden presidency. And before any of you bootlickers jump in to be like, Democrats actually did this and this and this, I never said that there wasn't anything good that happened during the Biden administration, but all the major key markers of cost of living that continues to go up continue to skyrocket as Biden was president, and he did nothing to address those things, such as childcare, housing, price gouging from corporations on groceries, the minimum wage, or healthcare. And why is that? Even when there were good proposals in the Build Back Better bill, you'll remember that they stripped everything good about it out and put it in a separate bill, which all of us at the time said was a ruse and that they were never going to pass it if they separated it. And a lot of bootlickers yelled at us and said, don't criticize them. They're doing the best they can. This is what happens when you make excuses for losers. It's about time that the voters, the Democratic voter base, stops making excuses for them. Because that's so embarrassing. The leaders, Hakeem Jeffries and Charles Schumer, are insanely embarrassing losers and should have resigned a while ago. They're not going to fight for you. They're not going to stop this horrific bill that the Republicans are going to push through the Senate. They're not going to do anything. They never do. They always just go, well, we're not in the majority and like there's nothing we can do. Because the Republicans don't give a fuck about the filibuster or the parliamentarian. They're going to run right past that. But the Democrats, they're going to sit there and go, oh no, we can't really do anything about this. And it will pass. And one of the reasons why it passed through a House with a very slim margin is because a couple lawmakers since just the beginning of this year have died. But you guys still don't demand any change. You don't demand younger lawmakers. You don't even demand that your party do anything to deliver for you. That is why we're in this situation, why we'll continue to be in this situation, because when you don't have anybody in the opposition fighting the fascism continues unabated.